Universalist church, building community, inspiring growth, creating change. Here in the heart of Kansas City, we come together to create this hour of shared reflection so that we might be renewed in courage for these times and inspired to lives of greater dignity, higher purpose, deeper generosity, and more effective action. May the words and music and images that we offer today nourish our best selves, calling forth abundant wisdom and love, a love that has the power to overcome both loneliness in the heart and oppression in the world. Welcome to our service.
Arise, O souls,
Morning, everybody. How are you today? Good morning. I'm Scott Hensey. I'm a member of All Souls. Whether you are here in the room or watching us online, your presence enriches all of us and our time together. Please join me in welcoming to our service today Charles Dickinson on the piano and violinist Trupia. We are a Unitarian Universalist congregation. Our tradition is a large tent with room for many beliefs and approaches to the questions that matter. That said, our values of inclusion, compassion, and justice are strong and hold us together. We seek to build the beloved community, making room for everyone and creating a world where everyone's needs are met. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are always welcome here. Whether you come in with laughter in your heart or tears, you're welcome here. You're invited to join us with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands. We welcome you today. You may be new here this morning, but welcome. I hope that you have visited the welcome table in the lobby, or you can learn more about All Souls and our members. Would any All Souls members who want to meet visitors please raise your hands? Visitors, as you're comfortable, I encourage you to talk with anybody, and the people who raise their hands. Hold on, I'm getting a text. I'm sorry. Oh, it's Ginger's grandson, Jordan. Happy birthday, Grandma. You're such a funny, incredible person. I love you so much. You support your grandchildren, and every trip we take is better with you there. We are all thankful that you are our grandmother. I love you more than you know. Hope you have a fantastic day. Much love, Jordan. On that note, today is Ginger's actual 93rd birthday. I think we should recognize that. Ginger, please stand.
happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ginger. Happy birthday to you.
It all came together nicely. I love it. April 6th is our annual auction. Tickets for dinner are available in the lobby if you're so inclined. And the live auction begins if you're not having dinner at 6 p.m., April 6th. Our guest minister this morning is Dr. Reverend Sabrina Trupia. Following a prior career in research development in biotechnology, Reverend Trupia received a Master of Divinity from Eden Seminary in St. Louis, then completed an internship in Montclair, New Jersey. Reverend Trupia lives in Edwardsville, Illinois, with spouse Ed, daughter Isabella, and 2 cats. Welcome to All Souls, Reverend Trupia.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me. Our opening words. Let us awaken to the rising of a new day. Feel the air. Look at the world surrounding us. When we are awake, we notice things as they are, not as we would have them be. When we awake, we see compassion, we see connections. We see the miracle of everyday life. Come, let us journey together.
Here today in this place, with all of us, may we listen so that we can hear. May we hear so that we can feel. May we feel so that we can know, and may we know so that we can change ourselves and this world. May this chalice we light our way. Please stand as you are able and join in the affirmation of our covenant, and then remain standing as we join together in song. Well is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
For the love which from our birth over
So I'm going to invite people who are young or young at heart to come over, and particularly if you like finger puppets, because I need 4 people to help me out with the time for all ages. Finger puppets. Okay, that was quick. All right, we got 4 animals. We have a monkey, all right? A parrot. He came first, so I'm going to give him the parrot. A bunny. It's okay. There's no such thing as a bad animal, right? And an elephant. All right, thank you so much for helping me. The story we're going to tell today is entitled, Whose Tree Is This? Or the story of the 4 harmonious friends. Do you all know what the word harmonious means?
It means how it means something that is in perfect balance and is great.
Well, that's a very good definition. I couldn't have said it better. So the story of the 4 harmonious friends is from a group of ancient Indian Buddhist stories called the Jatakas, which illustrate the many lives, acts, and spiritual practices that are required on the long path to enlightenment. Someone else, tell me about enlightenment. Anyone knows what enlightenment is? Yeah, me neither. So anyway, this is the story. Once upon a time in a forest in northern India, there were 4 animals. So when I call the animal, you do the finger thing. An elephant, a rabbit, a monkey, and a parrot. And so when the animals are talking, you move your finger with the animal on it, if you have an animal on your finger. The elephant, all of them had fed from a tree, and each of them thought it was theirs. The elephant claimed, well, this is my tree because I saw it first. To this, the monkey replied, well, I don't think so. Do you see any fruit on this tree? The elephant said, no. The monkey said, that's because I'd been feeding on the fruits of the tree long before you ever saw it. At this point, the rabbit chimed in. I fed on the leaves of this tree when it was just a small sapling before the monkey ate his fruit and way before the elephant ever saw it. Finally, the parrot, who had been watching the argument from above, came forward and said, the tree belongs to me because the tree wouldn't have grown if I hadn't spit out a seed. I helped plant this tree and that grew into this huge tree before the rabbit fed on it, or the monkey ate its fruit, or the elephant saw it. So there. Well, the other 3 animals, the elephant, monkey, and the rabbit, had to admit the parrot was kind of right. No seed, no tree. But they also recognized that each of them had played an important part in taking care of the tree, and that the tree belonged to all of them. So the 4 animals became friends and decided to share the tree together in peaceful harmony, enjoying the beauty of the tree's fragrance, the nourishment of its fruits, and the bounty of its shade. They worked together to get fruits, the fruits on the ground and on the lowest branches. The parrot and rabbit gathered together. The monkey climbed the tree and dropped the fruits for everyone to share. But only the elephant could reach the highest branches with his trunk and pick the fruit. The 4 animals worked cooperatively, and with their combined strength, each one benefited and no one ever went hungry. Other animals in the forest often saw them together, with the parrot on top of the rabbit, who was held up by the monkey, who rode on top of the elephant. And since then, they were called the 4 harmonious brothers. The 4 animals were looked upon as an example of peace, harmony, cooperation, interdependence, and friendship. The end. Can I get them back? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Whoop.
Please join us they're on their way. Please join us in a quick song for the children this morning.
Go now in peace, may love guide all your ways. Beauty be the blessing of your nights and days. Truth on your lips and kindness in your deeds. Faith to follow where the human spirit leads.
Good morning, my name is Alex Westerfelt, and I am part of the Stewardship Committee. I'm actually the caboose on the pledge campaign train. I'm the last of 3 appeals that we're going to make about the pledge. And actually, I'm not going to ask you today to make a pledge, because my guess is 95% of the people in this room and those of you listening online have already made a pledge, right? So, but here is what I want to ask of you. I want to tell a story first. So I have a daughter who's 41 years old. She lives in Columbus, Ohio. And she, like many of her generation, feels a lot of despair about her future. World political chaos, climate change, those sorts of things. So I say to her, go to the UU church there in Columbus, Ohio. I used to go there. It's a great church. Go. And she says, Dad, I am not going to church. And I say, well, it's different than what you're thinking of as church. The UU churches are different. She says, oh, really? Okay. So when she comes to visit me, she comes here to church. And when she leaves, she says, that isn't any different than the churches that I've seen or know. And so I say, what do you mean? She said, you come in, you have opening words, you have hymns, you have readings, you take up a collection, you have a sermon, and you may have another hymn, and you all go home, and it's rinse and repeat. So I said, okay, well, let's think about this. Because there is something a whole lot more than that I'm getting from this church. And how do we convince her and people of her generation that there is something more here? And that means we have to be clear about what that something more is, right? Now, I know the norms are changing, so our congregation is not the only one that's facing declining membership and attendance. That's true of many congregations in many faiths. It's also true of community organizations. Talk to any Kiwanis member, Lions Club member. They can't get people to come in and join and volunteer. The norms have changed. So what does that mean for us? Where do we go with that? And then there's a second group I want to mention. So we have approximately 100 households that are tenuously connected to this church. That means they're members, they contribute on occasion, and we see them actually very rarely, when once upon a time we saw them pretty often. What happened? Why are we missing those people? So remember, the theme of the pledge campaign is transformation, and we're going to look at how we need to transform as a church, right? So what I'm asking you to pledge, since you've already given us your money, and we'll be giving it again here shortly, what I'm going to ask you to pledge is to be part of those upcoming conversations. We really need people to engage. We really need people to think about how do we need to be different in this world today. What is it that we have to offer? I know what I find here. Community and connection is really important to me. How do we get that word out to other people and bring them in? We've got to have other doors that they're coming in and finding that. So when we start those conversations, whether they're church chats or evening conversations or whatever, I want you to engage. I want you to think about this beyond this morning. And I want us to talk to the people that we aren't seeing here that we used to see. We need to say why. What was it that brought you here, once met your needs, and isn't meeting your needs anymore? Or, I don't know. But we need to find out so that we can transform and meet those needs. So that's the pledge I ask of you. So now we'll take up our morning collection. It will be given gratefully, I believe, and gratefully received. That was really lovely. Thank you, both of you. Please join me now in the dedication of the offering. We dedicate our offerings and our actions to the mission at the heart of this congregation, to build a respectful, caring community, to inspire personal and spiritual growth, and to create change toward a just and compassionate society.
Our first reading is a poem, Spilling the Light, by Julian Jamaica Soto. Some people are used to keeping rules. Don't cross the street when the light is red. Only sensible. It turns out that keeping rules isn't the same as keeping covenant, which asks us, instead of keeping a bright line, to keep our promises. To what have we promised ourselves? To this moment in time and place, to this community, and even tenderly interconnected, this planet. We promise ourselves to the idea that we are each and all human beings. We promise that there is something moving between us that we cannot tame and cannot measure. The chalice is a reminder that what flame we keep inside us cannot light the way. The light must spill to shine. The thing you must be is yourself, unadulterated, shedding the willingness to journey alone, as though you are made of something hard and unforgivable. You are human. You belong right here, right now. And together we will chase away the sickness, the secrets, and leave only the open possibility that the future is a space for growth.
Reading number 2 is an excerpt from Entangled Life, How Fungi Make Our Worlds, Change Our Minds, and Shape Our Futures by Merlin Sheldrake. For humans, identifying where one individual stops and another starts is generally something we think about. Not really. It is usually taken for granted. Within modern industrial societies, at least, that we start where our bodies begin and stop where our bodies end. Development of modern medicine, such as organ transplants, worry these distinctions. Development in microbial science shake these distinctions to their very foundations. We are ecosystems composed of and decomposed by an ecology of microbes, the significance of which is only now coming to life. The 40-odd trillion microbes who live in and on our bodies allow us to digest food and produce key minerals that nourish us. Like the fungi that live within plants, they protect us from disease. They guide the development of our bodies and our immune systems. They influence our behavior. If not kept in check, they can cause illness and even kill us. We are not a special case. Even bacteria have viruses within them, a nanobiome, and even viruses contain smaller viruses, a picobiome. Symbiosis is a ubiquitous feature of life.
Symbiosis is a ubiquitous feature of life. And yet, these days, almost all we see around us are people divided, angry, lacking compassion, living in a world of I got mine and I don't care if you get yours. Interdependence doesn't come up much in our daily lives, does it? Why? Why can't the light spill naturally from inside us, spontaneously illuminating our interconnection? Well, I think it can. Actually, I think it does. It's just a matter of knowing how to look. And as Unitarian Universalists, we are fortunate because our faith helps us with that. I believe an important part of our faith is the promise we make to respect and support each other's unique spiritual journeys. This call to find our own spiritual way is largely inherited from our Unitarian ancestors, but not entirely. Unfortunately, over the years, it has frequently been used as a justification for individualism. Individuality is not the same as individualism. Individuality, let us grow in our differences and be together in harmony, like the four friends in the Time for All Ages. Individualism cuts us off from one another. Individualism thrives on disconnection, preaching the gospel, lifting ourselves by our bootstraps. No community involved, no solidarity. And yet, the idea of individual spirit did foster community among our Unitarian ancestors who understood the idea of interdependence. I could make many examples, but here in Kansas, you have the shining example of Reverend Ephraim Newt, who was the first Unitarian minister sent to the mission outpost in Lawrence. Mission, it's hard to think of Unitarians having missions, but they did. And as you may know, Reverend Newt was quite successful and was able to create community and connection, and some evidence of his connection is still here to this day. We UUs make another promise, which we inherited largely from our Universalist ancestors who believed that salvation for all really means for all. And even though today we aren't all Christians anymore, and even though we may not use the term salvation ever, what remains is the universal character of the promise we make to remember and honor the interdependence of all existence. So our faith traditions ask us to hold together both our uniqueness and our common interdependent existence. And if we accept this invitation, we cannot help but see the world through a lens of interconnection and compassion. And once we start seeing it somewhere, we start seeing it everywhere. Last November, someone left an invitation rolled up in the handle of my front door. The invitation said, please attend a meeting next Friday to discuss a proposal for an overnight warming location to serve our unhoused neighbors. Then they gave the address. Yay! I was happy to see that there would be a meeting, and I thought, finally, we're taking care of the most vulnerable among us. So I went to the meeting and listened to the panel of speakers, most of whom were ministers in other denominations, my colleagues, I guess, whose tone was surprisingly apologetic, as if they were trying to justify the warming center upcoming existence. Frankly, I was getting a bit annoyed. What's with the tone? Why are you apologizing? There is no need to explain why this is a good idea, right? Right? Well, it turns out the organizers had their reasons. At the Q&A time, a few opposing voices spoke up. Not in my backyard, they said. There was a man specifically who, with his words and his clipboard and his petition, because of course he had a petition, painted a dim picture of what would happen if we let those people in our neighborhood. He spoke of knowing what those people are like. They don't want to change their station in life. They are gross and unwashed. They are dangerous. Those people could approach our children on their way to school. They could murder us in our sleep. Yes, he really said that. Those people threaten our safety and will break the law. In his view, my community apparently is not a community in which unhoused people exist, except that it is. And looking the other way can be deadly when the temperature drops. The opposition succeeded in pressuring the city to issue an injunction, an ordinance threatening the center with fines up to $750 per night that the shelter stayed open. Of course, the organizers ignored the injunction and opened anyway, because when justice is a matter of life and death, we choose life. In his letter from a Birmingham jail, the Reverend Dr. King wrote that we are caught in an unescapable network of mutuality tied in a single garment of destiny. Inescapable network of mutuality tied in a single garment of destiny. I love this phrase and I use it all the time. Just ask my friends, my family. It offers both a visual representation and a reminder of why we should work for justice, because we're interconnected. And this is what I mean when I say that when we see interdependence somewhere, we start seeing it everywhere. Interdependence is what makes us fight for justice. We can only be free from oppression where everyone else is also free. Back to the guy with the clipboard, the guy at the meeting. I know it might seem as if I'm othering him, making him feel different, singling him out, just like he was othering those people. But remember, I know we're all interconnected. And so I know he's too part of the interconnected web of all existence. But I'm the curious type. Why was he so angry? Is he right in his suppositions? Are these unhoused neighbors really threatening the peace? When the weather turned cold in January, the overnight warming location activated for many nights in a row, despite the city ordinance. I volunteered, so I had a chance to observe those people. They were people from all walks of life: students, families, people down on their luck, not criminals. Many of them had jobs. It seemed to me they were not interested in murdering anyone. They just wanted a place to spend the night, a shower, maybe a hot meal. As we were assessing and distributing resources like gloves and mittens and whatnot, I noticed that the majority of our guests were middle-aged men who looked a lot like the guy with the clipboard. I mean, like the guy with the clipboard would have looked if his life had taken a turn for the worse. Wait a minute. What if the guy with the clipboard was afraid it could be him at the shelter, given one or two downturns in his life? What if he sees himself in these people, those people? What if the safety he wants is the assurance that that won't happen to him? You know what? I think he might be feeling interdependence, except he doesn't like how it feels. Remember what I said earlier, once you start seeing it somewhere, you start seeing it everywhere, right? Yes, because that's the thing. Interdependence is always at work, even when we don't think about it or when we turn away from it. This network of mutuality that Dr. King told us about is indeed inescapable. And it is at work even when we turn the other way. It's still there. Yeah, the single garment of destiny can make us uncomfortable sometimes. Let's all take a breath. Inhale. Exhale. Air connects us. Our collective breath is now part of the atmosphere. Speaking of which, I don't know if you heard this, but someone has crunched the numbers, and every breath we take today contains particles of the air that Julius Caesar exhaled in his last breath. They've done the calculations. You can look it up, Google it. We are connected to history, to Julius Caesar or Napoleon or Genghis Khan or any historical figure of your choice through our atmosphere, just like we were connected a moment ago. And it doesn't end with humans, of course. We share air with all breathing creatures, with all that has breath. That's an ancient biblical phrase, all that has breath. A phrase that makes me think of the book of Psalms in the Hebrew Testament. In seminary, one of the things we learned was to put Psalms in their historical context, to interpret them as both poetry and chronicle. In antiquity, you see, there was no difference between secular and religious like we have today. So when I looked at the Psalms back in my seminary days, I wondered, if the Psalms were written today, what would they be? They probably wouldn't all be hymns in the traditional sense. Some of them might be folk songs or pop songs. So let's go through this imagining. Some Psalms are songs of praise. Praise. Another word for praise is to celebrate. What we might sing along to today, then, what might be similar to a song of praise? Well, the first thing I thought of is a song by Kool and the Gang entitled Celebration. You know, the part that goes, so bring your good times and your laughter too, we're going to celebrate and party with you. I'm serious. Compare this with Psalm 145, another psalm of praise, that says, they shall celebrate the fame of your abundant goodness and shall ring aloud of your righteousness. I mean, it's pretty close, right? We can sort of understand each other across 3,500 years, give or take a century or so. We're connected across time and song. Yeah, once we see it somewhere, we start seeing it everywhere. And you might think I'm digressing, and maybe I am. But what I find relevant about the Psalms to the theme of the interdependence and of spilling the light, like in our first reading, is the word hallelujah. In the Psalms, it appears a lot. And in Hebrew, the root of the word hallelujah is the verb hallel, that means also illuminate. The very last psalm, Psalm 150, is a psalm of praise as well. But where other psalms of praise encourage all of creation to praise the divine in kind of categories like all the sea creatures, the children, the mountains, etc., Psalm 150 says, let all that has breath praise. Let all that has breath illuminate. Let all that has breath spill the light. Okay, all right, wait. What are we talking about here? All that has breath, living organisms then, right? Animals, maybe trees. Well, it depends on how you define breathing. If you define breathing as the uptake of oxygen, then rocks breathe too. So does water, rusty metal. Can we push this further? The 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics went to scientists who made contributions in understanding quantum entanglement. Don't panic. This is a natural phenomenon that can be explained very simply by saying that when subatomic particles are entangled, some characteristics of one particle depend on the characteristics of the other particle. And here's the thing, no matter how far apart they are or what lies between them, no matter how far apart light years or what lies between them, mountains, they are connected, they are entangled. That's the characteristics of subatomic particles. We all have them. This phenomenon speaks to a profoundly interrelated structure at the submicroscopic level. Maybe these particles don't breathe per se, but they too are linked in a pretty fundamental way. So yeah, this interrelated structure of reality is not just in Dr. King's spiritual vision, or in my own theology, or in our UU history. This is also corroborated by science. When we know how to look, we start seeing interdependence everywhere because it is everywhere. Studies have shown that 75% of those of us who stand in solidarity with the oppressed and marginalized, like the unhoused, the refugees, indigenous people, the LGBTQ community, 75% report increased empathy for our fellow humans, for our neighbors. But here's the thing. This reported empathy increases only if we show up, if we actively participate by, say, on-site volunteering, sharing a meal, marching together. And this empathy then spreads to our families, friends, coworkers, because we end up sharing our increased empathy with our community. The increased empathy extends the compassion like a network. Yeah, and so one of today's reading came from a book about fungi, very interesting. Back 700 million years ago, plants couldn't have started existing, flowering plants, if it weren't for fungi. I mean, plants couldn't grow even today if it wasn't for fungi. Without them, we wouldn't have antibiotics, we couldn't make bread, there wouldn't be a mechanism to break down rocks into soil, etc. The list keeps going, it's a whole book. Here's something that I find interesting. Some types of wood-rotting fungus, in order to find nourishment, so a piece of wood, it acts as if it's moving and looking around. When this fungus needs food, the fungal mycelium, this tentacle-like thread structure, or hyphae, that's the technical name, radiate outwards in all directions. They looking for a piece of wood until they find it. And when they find it, they move towards it, and so they contribute to their forest microbiome, providing nutrition, providing symbiosis with other life forms, flowing in microscopic solidarity with the rest of existence around it, but all in one direction. You might be wondering how the story of the warming center ended. Well, in case you're wondering, I'm happy to report that due to a lot of public pressure, the city rescinded the injunction and agreed the warming center could stay where it was. That's because the media got involved, by the way. The freezing season is kind of over, although today it's kind of cold, but And while the last word hasn't been said on the matter of the warming center, now we know there are more people who want to help the unhoused than there are in opposition to them. And this little movement keeps growing, and maybe it'll go beyond just the warming center. You could say this is the story of a network flowing in the direction of solidarity and compassion. Just its people, not fungi. Compassion is what allows us to spill the light, a signal to others that we are connected. Our compassion underscores our interdependence, our entanglements. With increased empathy and compassion, we flow towards seeing our collective mutuality. We become willingly entangled to one another. Yes, we're entangled to the guy with the clipboard too, and maybe sometimes we too are afraid, like him, of what we don't know. And my hope is that he and the rest of us can be ready to look at the realities of our communities and be willing to spill the light on our entanglements and become less afraid and more compassionate. Our awareness of the interconnectedness of the universe illuminates our relationship with all of existence. And what we do with our understanding of our mutual entanglements and interdependence, with our willingness or not to save each other and make community, is our choice only macroscopically. Because microscopically, we're already interconnected. To feel that, we just have to let ourselves flow with the breath of everything. May it be so. Please rise for our last song. I'm sorry.
Our world is one world. One touch is one, affects us all. The seas that wash us round about, the clouds that cover us, the rains that fall. Our world is one world. The thoughts we think affect us all. The way we build our attitudes with love or hate we make a bridge or wall. Our world is one world. Its ways of wealth affect us all. The way we spend, the way we share, who are the rich or poor, who stand or fall. Our world is one world, just like a ship that bears us all, where fear and greed make many holes, but where our hearts can hear a different call.
As we leave the sacred space let us remember we are all part of the same fabric of interdependent life, and our inner light will spill if we let it. Let's all go in peace and community. Amen.